Hi, welcome to Your Business, Your Rules. I'm Kat LeBlanc. This is the podcast for people who want to start and grow an online location-independent business so they can live a life of freedom and choice on their own terms. Welcome to episode 7 of Your Business, Your Rules. Today I am chatting with Camille Thurnherr, and she is a love and success mentor. And Camille is also my business building buddy. So what that means is we act as accountability partners, essentially. So we chat every weekday morning usually, and we talk about highs, lows, things that are going on for us in business, and we essentially mastermind together to help each other move forward. So the reason I wanted to invite Camille to be part of the podcast today is that we have a real insight into the highs and lows of each other's business. And I've shared a lot of content on Your Business, Your Rules to this point, and I really want to give some insider info and have you be able to see what it's like behind the scenes, what's actually going on in one of these location-independent businesses. So welcome, Camille. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Kat. So great to be here.
Wonderful. So what we're going to talk about in this episode is essentially the highs and lows of business, so you can get a feel for it. And yeah, Camille, as I was saying, this is something that we are chatting about on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And it's so true that, you know, we really know a lot about each other's businesses and especially the ups and downs. And it's been such a rewarding journey, really, just having someone to talk to on a daily basis, because as you know, Kat, things can come up. So it's been such a great support throughout it's been a few years now, hasn't it? A couple of years.
It has. So we met I think it's more like 3 or 4.
3 or 4.
Yeah, we met at a business event, and basically I saw Camille and I was thinking, she looks cool. I think I want to get to know her. And yeah, my intention worked. So
your intuition was right.
Yeah, it all just worked out. But I think the reason for sharing this is because the journey of being a business owner is the highs and lows are much bigger usually than the work if you're going to work. And I think people don't realize this. And this is why I wanted to talk about this, because it really is a roller coaster. It can be pretty crazy. And I think you have to learn to love that a little bit to be prepared to go for the ride, right? What do you think, Camille?
I absolutely agree. I think there must be part of us that we actually love that living on the edge a little bit. The good thing is it's never boring and we do thrive. The ups and downs can be really challenging, but there's also something good about it in regards to, like, it keeps us on our toes, it keeps us alive, feeling alive, and it keeps things interesting. It's funny that now, reflecting back when we first met, I actually remember now that time, and I was actually still doing sales for a video company part-time at the time, and it was actually quite a while ago. So sometimes it's also important to look back and realize, oh my God, like, how far have we actually come? So it's definitely been a few years.
Yeah, so let's start with some highs, because I think we all see the marketing and we all think, like, oh my God, it would be so amazing to do this. And sometimes I'm sitting around with other entrepreneurial friends and we're kind of laughing about that, but then we realize we're actually doing it. It's really bizarre. It's like we're laughing about the people with the private jets because we don't have the private jets, but then we're sitting around and it's like, hang on a sec. We're actually drinking cocktails on a Tuesday and it's lunchtime. Like, this actually happened to me when I was in Chicago recently. I met up with a former client and she came over I was staying at a really nice hotel. She came over and I had drinks vouchers and we were sitting outside actually looking over Lake Michigan.
Amazing.
Yeah. And we were like, yeah, that marketing, ha ha ha. I was like, well, hang on a sec. She's drinking some kind of daiquiri or something, and I think I had a mocktail, making the story slightly boring there. But yeah,
oh, no.
It was like, oh look, we're actually freaking doing it, Have you had any moments where you're just like, yeah, like, this is what I signed up for, this is what it's all about?
Great question. I actually have those moments a few times a week, to be honest, because I have a little office, where I do my Skype sessions and everything else. in an area that I absolutely love in Melbourne. It's in Albert Park, and it's an area where I eventually would love to, buy my dream home. But I've got my office there in the meantime. And I have lunch out with friends every, few times a week. And yeah, I have those moments nearly daily where I'm like, wow, I can take my lunch break pretty much whenever I want to. I'm in an area where I want to be. I'm surrounded by, I love where I am at. And yeah, the freedom it's such a high value of mine. And I definitely have those moments, at least a few times a week.
It's so interesting that you share that, actually, because I had one of those this week. So I think you're right. There's regular moments where you're just like, hang on a sec, everyone else is at work. And then there's the moments where you're like, where it's a really big one and you're thinking like, yeah, this is it. So I had one of those regular moments actually this week. So on Monday morning, so I wake up pretty early, actually. I'm turning into one of those entrepreneurials with the early bird thing. I thought that would never be me. I used to start work at 10 at the earliest for 2 years. But now, for whatever reason, at 7 a.m., I was practically ready to start my day. And I just realized, like, hang on a sec. There's nothing for dinner. The dog hasn't got any food. And I think I've run out of something important. It was milk for 80. I don't drink milk. And I realized, I can go to the supermarket before my work day. So I'm like out listening to the radio in my car and the sun's shining and I'm in the supermarket and browsing and going, yeah, I think I'm going to get some strawberries and some blueberries. And then I came home, I got out of my car and I had this moment where I thought, I just looked up at the sky and at the trees around me and I thought, wow, if I could tell myself 10 years ago that I would live here and have met my dream partner, which that is a story for another time. And you know all about that.
There's an interview actually.
Yeah, there is.
You share that story.
There is an interview. I'll put that in the show notes. If I could tell myself, like, this is going to be where you live, this is going to be your home, and you are going to be doing something that you love. And, even if it's a really small thing, you can go shopping before you start your work day or, do that in the middle of the day or whatever you want. I just had this moment of like, yeah, this is awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's priceless. Those moments are priceless.
You're right. They are. And I also want to talk about big things. So big things that I had recently was essentially the travel. So last year I spent 3 months on the road. So one of my really good friends came over. We traveled up the east coast of Australia together. I went to New York and got to meet really amazing people. So I think that's another big benefit, that you get to meet people who are doing really, really interesting things. So sure, you meet like cool people at work, but I feel like when you move in the entrepreneurial world, that you meet people who are doing things on a whole different level. So how do you feel about that?
100%. As you know, Kat, like I interview women on a fairly regular basis. It's a YouTube project. I call it Successful Women in Love Have to Cake and Eat It Too. I've interviewed quite a lot of women, and it's about the women share around how they met their life partner, as well as how they juggle having a great relationship and a successful, thriving business. So I got to interview some great women like Melanie Schilling. She was on Married at First Sight on the TV show. People like Denise Duffield Thomas, who are doing amazing things in the entrepreneurial world. So absolutely, that's a big part of it. There's really nothing boring about being an entrepreneur. Again, it's sort of, I guess it either resonates with that living on the edge a little bit and having a lot, potentially lots of ups and downs, but it's never boring and you meet amazing people 100%. As you know, I'm a big networker as well. I often go to events and absolutely love them. And we've been in other mastermind groups together. You meet amazing people in those networks, 100%.
One thing I want to touch on that you said, I think over time, the highs and lows are different. So in the beginning, the highs and lows are a lot to do with cash flow and getting clients. And then over time, the highs and lows are more like bigger financial paydays, but then, like projects not working out how you wanted, or like awkward situations with clients. Like they change in terms of what they are. But I think it's the striving that continues to drive the highs and lows. So that's my experience. So if I think about my own business and if I look at clients' businesses, you definitely have, it's bumpy at first and then you can reach a level of stability. And if that's where you want to stay, like if you are happy with a particular income figure that you hit, you have regular clients, you've got everything running in your business, then it's going to be more cruisy in terms of the fact is that you're not going to be hitting these like highs and lows. But if you are looking to continue to grow, which I think a good proportion of people that come into the entrepreneurial world are, then you're constantly trying to do new things. So you're constantly getting those things coming into your life. So let's talk a little bit about some challenges that you've experienced. If you'd like to go first, Camille.
Definitely. I'd like to add something, though, to what you just said. It's such a good point. And I think the resilience goes up. So that's one point. Like we just get more resilient over time. And also I think the standards keep on going up. Again, looking back when we first met, I was like, woo, I remember I was interviewed for my local paper in St Kilda. I don't know if you remember. I think that was even maybe before we met. I had like an article published. And I was so excited where now I wouldn't even consider probably doing an article for a local paper. It's nearly like that would not excite me anymore. But back then, so I think that the standards just automatically go up and up and up without us realizing.
Yeah, so true. I remember when I first got into Huffington Post, I was practically blind with excitement. I was
I remember.
Yeah, I was so pumped until I realized that they don't automatically put your bio in. Like you have to do that separately. So I didn't get a link back to so it was like this huge high, talking about lows as well. Yes, or like I'm a Huffington Post author or publisher. And then I realized there's actually no link back and that has to be added in addition. And I just felt like, oh my God, I lost all of that traffic.
You were devastated. I remember.
I was devastated. But now I'm just like, well, I know that Huffington Post is not necessarily a great place to get traffic. It's a great place to gain credibility, but it's not a great place to traffic. So now I'll just be like, whatever.
Totally.
Yeah, I was thrilled and then devastated. I think all on the same day. Interesting.
So back to your question, you wanted to talk about the lows. Let's definitely share some of those. I think for me, a big one was being asked for a refund the first time. That was just felt really, really disappointing. And I nearly felt like I was that it threw me off for at least a week. That was a big one. But another one was, and we had a chat about this not long ago, my business is mostly online, but I do also run events to promote my programs. And I did an event with a styling expert. Actually, we did a JV partnership, and we ran an event in Sydney, and I'm based in Melbourne. So flew up there. Took us a few weeks to promote it, and it was at a high-end day spa, and we did have a lot of people who attended. So we had about at least 30 women, and it was quite a small space. It was very targeted. We thought they were our ideal clients, and we thought we did a great job with the presentation, but it just didn't work. Like everyone was sort of sitting there with their arms crossed, and our call to action was to book in for a complimentary chat where then, of course, we would promote our programs, the joint program and individual programs. And I think we had maybe there was one person who was happy to even book in for that chat, but it was so disappointing because I was so excited about the event. We both got our hair done, got extra outfits. I flew up. The expenses were fairly high to run that event, and we actually got no return. And that was a moment where I could have easily just gone, okay, I think it's time to walk away from this business. It's just not working. But of course I didn't. But I remember that was a really, really big one for me.
Yeah. And it hurts either way, but kind of being there in front of everybody and they're all like, I don't want to be here, or, it's just not a fit for them. I can imagine how uncomfortable and also incredibly disappointing that would be. I had a similar one. I think I shared it earlier in the podcast where I did this webinar. I made a huge fuss about it. I was promoting absolutely everywhere. So it was really public, which is a challenge for me to be incredibly public about what I'm doing. I kind of like to be a little bit more in the background. And I did the webinar. It was the first one that I'd done live in that way. So my situation was a little bit different in that everybody thought the content was amazing. They loved what I had shared. I got all of these emails about it, but nobody bought my thing. And I was honestly, the energy and kind of pushing out of the comfort zone that it had taken me to run that thing in the first place, like I was on my absolute limit. And then to get no result from it after doing really well with previous programs, I was really completely gutted. Like I was in tears. It took me, and I didn't have space at that time to take time to recover because I had to solve the situation. But yeah, if I had been able to take a rest, I would think I would have been in bed for 3 days. Like it really, really kind of cut me to the core, to the point of like, okay, do I even want to do this? Like I've pushed myself so hard for nothing. I mean, not for nothing. People really enjoyed it. They thought it was really good, but there had been a purpose behind it. I was launching a program. And I think there's a lot of moments like that. There's just like the highs. There's moments where there's like a big crashing low where you're just like, oh my God, do I even want to do this? And then the kind of the little things that come in between. Like I also remember the first time I had a refund request and you feel disappointed that the person didn't feel that they got value. It can feel quite personal. If you're early on in your business, you literally may have to scrabble around in the background to figure out how to get them their money back as well, which is another challenge.
Definitely. I think I've just remembered another one too is getting that first sort of, I don't know if you've had any of them. I can't remember if you have actually, the real hater emails, like with, responding to the newsletter or the blog post. Like I remember I had one, maybe a couple of years ago now where, the woman was really nasty. And I felt again like it was a bit of a tough moment. But then I remembered a lot of entrepreneurs saying, actually, when you do get some of those comments, that means that you're doing something well, which means that you're visible in a bigger way and you have got a strong opinion. Otherwise, I guess if you're really sort of politically correct and very, very neutral and you don't show up, you won't get those. So in a way, I remember also like, oh, okay, I must be doing something right now.
I think that affects a lot of people. So I expected to get haters a lot sooner because I think I was just so afraid to put myself out there. I've had a couple of situations like that. So I've had one person who I had even had a conversation with and she was considering joining up for one of my programs and like everything had been really nice. And then one particular email that I sent out had something about going for your dreams, I think. And she responded angrily saying, people taken away my dreams years ago and blah, blah, blah and blah, blah, blah. And like, it was a personal attack. And I was really taken aback, but then also like having heard that thing about, okay, when you get haters, it means you've made it. Although in that case, I felt like, well, this person knew me, but then all I could kind of chalk that up to was the fact that something I had said had really triggered something, probably related to something in her past, something that was, really not about me. Clearly I hadn't done anything to upset her because we'd had really lovely interactions until that one email where I talked about that thing that I think just triggered off a reaction to all of the things that had happened to her before. So for me, it was kind of to know it's actually that situation was not about me. Of course, I would wish that people would be more considerate because there really is a human being reading those emails on the other end. But it's just, I think it comes with the territory and there comes to a point where you don't take it personally or you really can't. And another thing that can be done there is people just don't read their email anymore. So, I mean, that's a personal decision whether you want to do that or not, whether you want to be personally interacting with your audience or not. So I know a lot of people who are running very large businesses, it's basically impossible for them to get that kind of feedback because it's filtered by their teams. It can certainly take you aback.
Absolutely. And I think that's the ideal, to eventually have your VA checking those sort of messages, or you don't even need to be thrown off by them because it's not a good time of your energy really to be thrown off by someone who's projecting their stuff onto you. So definitely, I think it's pretty much, it will happen. it will happen, because it seems to be one thing you can't avoid.
I think the other thing that happens is there's definitely an experience in business of trying things, putting things out there, doing stuff, and just not really getting a reaction, not really working how you wanted. And like you said, building the resilience around that. So if I think about my experience of the webinar, I was devastated. I was more devastated because it was very public, but I've had lots of smaller experiences where I've tried things, I've experimented with different products, I've changed things, and there's just been no reaction. And I think you have to get to a point where you're not bothered by that. You just sit down and go, okay, well, that didn't hit home for whatever reason. What do I think that reason is? Let's work on that. And those are the kind of the little things that can definitely put you off at the very beginning, but later on, because you have some consistency, you're not so worried about that.
Definitely. And a bit of a tip around that, what's worked for me is when I have had some of those setbacks, to read some past testimonials from clients who absolutely loved me and who got so many amazing results. It sounds sort of silly, but sometimes it's nearly like we need to remind ourselves that we're doing an amazing job and, we've created so much success and change for clients, nearly like to just regroup and remind ourselves along the way.
Absolutely. Because, like we shared, it's bumpy sometimes. And when you get used to that, then I think it's okay. And I mean, I have to say I love it. In the beginning, there were certain things that were challenging. But like you said, like the resilience grows, you get more used to it. And then you start to not take things so personally. So if my product didn't land, okay, it's not about people hating me. It's just that this particular thing didn't fit their needs. Okay, move on. It's definitely challenging. There are moments where there are going to be things that are confronting because you are dealing with everything. But once you get some traction, once you get going, and once you learn how to manage your mindset, which is one of the topics I'll be talking about lots more on the podcast, it becomes fun. Like we often laugh about this stuff. We're like, we did this thing, we tried that didn't work. And then we're just like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. There is an element of treating it like a game. So of course it's not a game. Our work is a really big deal to us. What our clients get out of this is a really big deal. But when you start taking it a little bit more lightly and you start not taking on, not putting meaning into things where the meaning isn't necessarily there, then it is fun. Like I find the highs and the lows, like, okay, I get kicked in the gut sometimes, but then I'm like, yeah,
so true.
Remember the time like when we talk about the shitty things that happen to us, we laugh about it a lot, right? What do you think about that?
Definitely. And I think that's where it's absolutely crucial to have a mentor or, to at least start off with having an accountability buddy, like where you can have that daily contact where you can get that support. And absolutely, because it's nearly like sometimes, like, for example, when you've had one of those setbacks, it often very opposites. If I'm on a high, something may have happened in your business and vice versa. We seem to balance each other out really well. And I'm much more of an extrovert and love networking and events, and where, you spend less time, doing that. Then again, that's changing as well. But so it seems to be working really well. So it's nearly like having that other person there saying like, oh, is that all that went wrong? Like, okay, big deal. And we just have a bit of a chat about it and coach each other, and then we just get on with it.
Yeah, it's the only way.
It's the only way.
So we've talked about the highs and we've talked about the lows. And I think it's important to show these both sides and not just to kind of always just focus on the dream. But ultimately, it is about the dream, right? So how do you feel about that, Camille?
Absolutely. I think, again, it's important to celebrate the achievements and the small wins every day. Again, we do that pretty much daily. We also catch up on a regular basis in person. We have lunch, we go shopping, we celebrate our wins. And it's really important to reconnect to the why every day. Like, why am I actually doing this? What am I creating? What's the difference I've already made? And there's a quote I shared the other day, which is so simple, but it's quite relevant. And it says, keep following your heart. It won't always be easy, but it will be the most important thing you'll do.
Love it.
For me, it's nearly like there's no other way. I could never go back to being employed. It's just not an option. There's no plan B, and I love it.
Yeah.
That's really where it's at. I'm continuously making it work in different ways, trying different things, building a bigger following. It's an ongoing journey, but it's so exciting. Why would you want to do anything else? So for me, it's really like there's no plan B. Initially, I had plan B with, I could have gone back to doing sales or, I used to be a flight attendant many years ago. So, I had some backup plans, but now I don't even think about them. There's no plan B.
Yeah, I agree. Like there's no plan B for me either. Like this is it. And I mean, we've both reached a stage where we don't need to consider a plan B, but there were times where we did, right? But I think that there are times when it feels tough and you're like, maybe I should do something else. And then 5 minutes later, you're like, that's the stupidest idea I've had in a long time.
Totally.
It really, I think sometimes we can get wrapped up in it and we're like, oh, but this, but that, I'm trying to do this and this is so annoying and how do I solve this? And this thing happened, and then you forget, you have those moments, you forget you're not going to earn the same money going back to work anyway, even on that level. And then you're not going to make the same difference. You're not going to have the same awesome experiences. You're not going to get to choose who you work with. You're not going to get to take your work with you. In some work you can, some jobs you can, but that's fairly unusual. Like you're not going to get all of this elsewhere. So in those moments where you're like, this is really bothering me. I wish I didn't have to deal with this. But then you come back to it and you're like, no, actually, this is awesome. I am like, when I have those moments, I'm like, I'm so happy the internet was invented because, otherwise this existence and this life that I have for myself would not be open to me. So
love it.
Yeah. All about following your dreams.
Absolutely. And it's so rewarding. It's the best feeling, really.
It is, because everything that you create, all of the results that happen, and in the beginning, you don't even I don't think you have a concept in the beginning of all of the amazing work and the results that you're going to create. All of that just seems hypothetical. But when you're on the other side of that, or you're seeing that already, like all of that you created from nothing. This is something that AD, my partner, says to me as well. He says that, like you created this from nothing. And then that feels huge. That feels incredible.
Yes, you do mention that every now and again, even to remind me when I have an off day. It's so true. And again, we often forget how far we've come because we're sort of so in the moment. And it's true. We've both created, programs from nothing. We've created a brand. We've created our intellectual property, all of those things from scratch. And that I love the creative process of being able to recreate an event and grow in ways that you just can't if you work for someone else.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Camille. Thank you for sharing so openly. It was wonderful to have you here on Your Business, Your Rules, and we are going to continue the conversation, and we'll be talking about all the ways that you can get in your own way and how to get past them next week on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Your Business, Your Rules. I'm Kat LeBlanc. If you like this show, I'd love you to subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. And if you'd like to continue the conversation, head over to my website at katleblanc.com. Until next time.